A billionaire's world stops when a shy waitress effortlessly switches between 7 languages, each one revealing a mystery he's desperate to uncover. Share where you're watching from in the comments. Thanks for your support. Get ready for the story. Marcus Ashford never waited for anything. At 34, he'd built an empire that spanned 3 continents, commanded boardrooms with a single glance, and collected accolades the way other men collected ties. Yet here he was, sitting in Antonio's, a mid-tier Italian restaurant in downtown Seattle, waiting for a table like some common patron. The hostess had stammered something about unexpected rush and just 15 minutes, but Marcus knew incompetence when he saw it. He loosened his Hermes tie with visible irritation, his steel-gray eyes scanning the controlled chaos of the dining room. That's when he noticed her, a waitress, slight frame, honey-blonde hair, pulled into a messy bun, maybe 26 or 27, navigating between tables with the precision of a ballet dancer. She balanced 4 plates on one arm while simultaneously fielding questions from a family of 6. What caught his attention wasn't her efficiency, though that was remarkable. It was the way she switched languages mid-stride. "Si, signora, il pollo è senza glutine," she assured an elderly Italian woman with perfect inflection. 2 steps later, she addressed a young couple in flawless French. "Le soufflé prendra 20 minutes, mais je promets que ça vaut l'attente." Then, without missing a beat, she pivoted to a businessman struggling with his menu in German. "Ich empfehle den Lachs. Der Koch macht ihn perfekt." Marcus blinked. He'd spent years in international business, prided himself on his command of 3 languages. But watching this waitress seamlessly navigate 7 different conversations in 7 different tongues left him oddly unsettled. She moved with quiet confidence, never drawing attention to her linguistic acrobatics. Most of the diners probably didn't even notice they were being served in their native languages. When she finally approached him, her eyes, a striking shade of amber, met his briefly before dropping to her notepad. "I apologize for the wait, sir. What can I get you this evening?" Her English was crisp, professional, with just a hint of something he couldn't quite place, an accent buried so deep it was almost imperceptible. "You speak German," Marcus said, making it a statement rather than a question. Something flickered across her face, surprise, maybe caution, before the professional mask returned. "I know enough to help guests feel comfortable. Have you decided on your entree?" "And Italian, French. I counted at least 7 languages in the last 10 minutes. The waitress, her name tag read Lily, shifted her weight almost imperceptibly. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but Marcus had built his fortune reading body language in negotiations. She was uncomfortable with his attention. "Antonio serves an international clientele. We try to accommodate." Her deflection was smooth, practiced. Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying her with the same intensity he'd used to evaluate a potential acquisition. "Where did you learn?" "Community college offers great language programs. Now, about your order." "I don't believe you." The words came out sharper than he'd intended, but Marcus Ashford hadn't become a billionaire by accepting convenient lies. Her amber eyes flashed with something dangerous, and for the first time that evening, her carefully maintained composure cracked just slightly. "Forgive me, sir, but I wasn't aware I needed your belief to do my job. The kitchen closes in 2 hours. I'd recommend deciding soon if you'd like dinner." Marcus felt a smile tug at his lips, an unfamiliar sensation. When was the last time someone had spoken to him like that? His board members cowered. His competitors capitulated. His dates simpered and agreed with everything he said. But this waitress, this woman in a stained apron, making probably $12 an hour, had just put him in his place with the kind of cool dignity he'd only seen in European aristocracy. "The ribeye, medium rare, and your best Bordeaux. Excellent choice." She scribbled on her pad, already turning away. "Wait." Something in his tone made her pause. "What's your story, Lily?" For just a moment her professional veneer dissolved completely, and Marcus saw something raw beneath, pain, maybe, or loss. A history written in the tight corners of her mouth and the way her fingers gripped that notepad like a lifeline. "Everyone has a story, Mr. Ashford. Most of us just don't have the luxury of sharing it during working hours." She walked away before he could respond, leaving Marcus staring after her with an unfamiliar sensation tightening in his chest. How did she know his name? He'd made the reservation under his assistant's account. The evening proceeded with mechanical efficiency. His ribeye was perfectly prepared, the Bordeaux exceptional. But Marcus barely tasted either. He watched Lily move through the restaurant, speaking Mandarin to a Chinese family, Portuguese to a Brazilian couple, even what sounded like Arabic to a man in traditional dress. Each interaction was brief, professional, and executed with the kind of cultural fluency that took years, decades, to develop. This wasn't community college language training. This was the product of immersion, of living and breathing these cultures. Marcus knew because he'd spent 6 years in European boarding schools, another 4 at international universities. You didn't learn to speak like that from textbooks. When Lily brought his check, Marcus made his decision. "I'd like to offer you a position." She set the leather folder down carefully, her expression unreadable. "I'm happy in my current employment." "You're wasting your potential serving overpriced pasta to tourists." "Respectfully, sir, you know nothing about my potential or what I choose to do with it." There it was again, that steel wrapped in silk. Marcus pulled out his business card, placed it on top of the check. "Executive Assistant, International Liaison. Name your salary." Lily glanced at the card. Embossed, expensive, dripping with the kind of corporate prestige people killed for, and for a moment Marcus thought he saw longing flicker across her face. Then she picked up the leather folder, leaving his card untouched on the table. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Ashford, but some of us learned the hard way that working for powerful men rarely ends well. Enjoy your evening." She was gone before he could formulate a response, disappearing into the kitchen like smoke. Marcus sat alone in the dimly lit restaurant, staring at his rejected business card with a feeling he hadn't experienced in over a decade. Genuine curiosity. His phone buzzed, his 10th meeting reminder of the day. He silenced it. For the first time in years, Marcus Ashford wasn't thinking about mergers or markets or quarterly projections. He was thinking about a waitress with amber eyes who spoke 7 languages and looked at him like he was just another customer. Tomorrow, he'd come back. And the day after that. Because Marcus Ashford never walked away from a mystery. And Lily, whoever she really was, had just become the most interesting acquisition target of his career. Though he suspected, with growing certainty, that this was one negotiation where his usual tactics wouldn't work. The thought should have frustrated him. Instead, inexplicably, it made him smile. Marcus returned to Antonio's the following evening with no reservation and a growing sense that he was doing something profoundly stupid. Billionaires didn't chase waitresses. They certainly didn't rearrange their schedules. He'd moved a meeting with the Japanese consul and postponed drinks with his CFO just to eat mediocre Italian food 2 nights in a row. Yet here he stood watching through the restaurant's front window as Lily gracefully deflected a drunk patron's advances in what sounded like Russian. The man laughed, seemingly charmed rather than offended by her rejection, and stumbled back to his table. Impressive. When Marcus entered, the hostess, the same flustered woman from yesterday, practically tripped over herself to seat him. "Mr. Ashford, we didn't expect—" "I'll get you our best table immediately. The same one as yesterday is fine." His eyes tracked Lily across the room. She hadn't noticed him yet, too focused on explaining wine pairings to an elderly couple in flawless Spanish. The hostess led him to a table in Lily's section. When she finally approached, armed with menus and that professional smile, Marcus watched recognition flicker across her features, followed quickly by resignation. Good evening, Mr. Ashford. Back so soon? The ribeye was exceptional. I'll be sure to tell the kitchen. She set down the menu. Already know what you'd like, or should I give you a moment? I'd like to know why you turned down a six-figure salary to keep serving pasta. Lily's smile didn't waver, but her knuckles whitened around the menu. And I'd like customers who actually order food. Looks like we're both facing disappointment tonight. Despite himself, Marcus laughed, a genuine, surprised sound that made nearby diners glance over. When was the last time someone had verbally sparred with him like this? His board members delivered carefully prepared rebuttals. His competitors lobbed predictable attacks. But Lily's quick wit felt unrehearsed, authentic. Fine. I'll have the ossobuco, and you'll join me for a drink after your shift. I don't drink with customers. I'm not really here for the food. No? She tilted her head, studying him with those unsettling amber eyes. Then what are you here for, Mr. Ashford? The question hung between them, loaded with implications Marcus wasn't quite ready to examine. He'd told himself this was about curiosity, about solving the puzzle she represented. But sitting under her direct gaze, he felt something shift, a tectonic movement in the carefully constructed landscape of his life. I'm here because you're the first person in a decade who's told me no. Lily's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Then you need better friends. I don't have friends. I have associates, employees, and people who want something from me. And which category do I fall into? None of them. That's the problem. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. The restaurant's noise, clinking glasses, overlapping conversations, the kitchen's rhythmic chaos faded into background static. Marcus felt the strangest sensation, like standing on the edge of a cliff he hadn't known existed. Then Lily blinked, and the professional mask snapped back into place. One ossobuco. I'll put your order in. She turned to leave, but Marcus caught her wrist, gently, barely a touch. She froze, and he immediately released her, disturbed by the electricity that had shot through that brief contact. I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. Lily rubbed her wrist, not because he'd hurt her, but as if trying to erase the sensation. Yes, it was. Have dinner with me, not here. Somewhere you choose. Why? The question was simple, but her tone was complex, suspicious, curious, and something else Marcus couldn't identify. He decided unusually to try honesty. Because I've spent the last 24 hours thinking about you, instead of the $30 million acquisition I'm supposed to close this week. Because you speak 7 languages and serve Italian food like you're in witness protection. Because when you look at me, you don't see money or power or opportunity. You just see a man. And I can't remember the last time that happened. Lily's eyes widened fractionally. For a heartbeat, Marcus thought she might say, yes. Then her expression shuddered completely. I see a man who's used to getting what he wants, she said quietly. And I see a story that doesn't end well for people like me. I'll get your osso buco. This time, when she walked away, Marcus let her go. He spent the next hour picking at exceptional food he barely tasted, watching Lily navigate her complicated dance between tables. She spoke Japanese to a businessman, Swedish to a tourist family, and Italian to the kitchen staff, each language switching as naturally as breathing. But it wasn't just linguistic ability. She knew cultural nuances. When the Japanese businessman bowed slightly, she returned it at exactly the right angle. When the Italian grandmother grabbed her hand emotionally, Lily squeezed back with familiar warmth. This wasn't learned behavior. This was lived experience. Marcus's phone buzzed insistently, his mother probably calling about next week's charity gala. He ignored it, too focused on the mystery unfolding across the dining room. When Lily brought his check, Marcus didn't reach for his wallet. Instead, he said in flawless French, Vous n'êtes pas qu'une simple serveuse. Qui êtes-vous vraiment? You're not just a waitress. Who are you really? Lily's hand trembled slightly as she set down the check. She responded in the same language, her accent suddenly pure Parisian. Je suis quelqu'un qui a appris à ne pas faire confiance aux hommes puissants. I'm someone who learned not to trust powerful men. Qu'est-ce qui vous est arrivé? What happened to you? Something painful flashed across her face. That, she said, switching back to English, is none of your business. Have a good evening, Mr. Ashford. But as she turned, Marcus noticed something he'd missed before. When her sleeve rode up slightly, he caught a glimpse of a scar, neat, surgical, running up the inside of her wrist. Not a suicide attempt. Something else. Something deliberate. The pieces were starting to form a picture, though Marcus couldn't yet see the full image. Educated, multilingual, cultural fluency across multiple continents. That scar. The way she carried herself, poised, dignified, despite the stained apron and cheap shoes. And the pain in her eyes when he'd asked about powerful men. Marcus paid his bill and left a $500 tip on a $70 check. As he stood to leave, he leaned close enough that only Lily could hear him. I'm not going to stop coming back. She met his eyes, and for the first time he saw real emotion there, a mixture of fear and something that might have been hope. You should. I know. I'm going to anyway. Why? Lily whispered. Because you're afraid of me. And you shouldn't be. Because someone hurt you, and I want to know who so I can destroy them. Because when you speak French with that perfect accent, I hear education that costs more than most people's mortgages. Because... He stopped, surprised by his own honesty. Because I haven't felt anything real in so long I'd forgotten what it was like. Lily's breath caught audibly. You don't know me. No, but I'd like to. He pulled out another business card, this time writing his personal cell number on the back. When you're ready to tell me your story, call, day or night. I'll answer. He placed the card in her hand, carefully, not touching her skin this time. Then Marcus Ashford walked out of Antonio's restaurant with the unsettling certainty that his carefully ordered life was about to become beautifully complicated. Behind him, Lily stood motionless, staring at the card in her trembling hand, wondering if she was brave enough to trust again, wondering if this arrogant billionaire might be different from the powerful man who'd destroyed her life 3 years ago, wondering if some small broken part of her heart might still be capable of hope. 6 days passed. Marcus came to Antonio's every single evening, ordered different entrees he barely touched, left extravagant tips, and never once pressured Lily for anything beyond her excellent service. He didn't mention dinner again, didn't ask invasive questions, just sat in her section, occasionally speaking to her in French or Italian or German, treating each interaction like a gentleman caller from another century. Respectful, patient, persistent. It was driving Lily absolutely insane. On the 7th day, she called the number on his card. Marcus answered before the second ring. Lily. Not a question. He'd obviously saved her number from the restaurant's caller ID. This is a terrible idea, she said without preamble. Probably. She heard the smile in his voice. I finish at 11. There's a late-night cafe on Pine Street that... I'll send a car. No. Her voice was sharp. No cars, no drivers, no assistants or bodyguards or whatever army you travel with. Just you. Pine Street Cafe. 11:30. Done. He paused. Thank you, Lily. She hung up before she could lose her nerve, already questioning her sanity. What was she doing? She'd rebuilt her life from ashes, created something small but safe. Marcus Ashford was everything she'd run from. Wealth, power, the kind of man who reshaped reality to his preferences. But he'd also spent a week treating her with more genuine respect than most people showed waitresses. And when he looked at her, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. At 11:30, Lily pushed through the cafe door to find Marcus already there, sitting in a corner booth with 2 untouched coffees. He'd lost the tie, rolled up his shirt sleeves, and somehow looked more human than he did in his tailored armor. He stood when he saw her, an old-fashioned gesture that made her throat tight. "You came," he said simply, "against my better judgment." Lily slid into the opposite side of the booth, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. "I have rules. I'm listening. No questions about my past until I'm ready to share. No using your wealth to fix my life. No expectations. And the second this feels like a transaction, I'm gone." Marcus nodded slowly. "Fair. My rule? Honesty. If you ask me something, I'll tell you the truth. I expect the same. Deal." They sipped their coffee in surprisingly comfortable silence. Then Marcus said, "Tell me something true that has nothing to do with your past." Lily considered. "I hate working at Antonio's. The owner's a sexist pig who steals tips. The kitchen staff plays demeaning games. But the linguist in me loves it. Every shift is like traveling the world without leaving Seattle." "Linguist," Marcus repeated. "That's what you studied?" She caught herself. "That's a past question." "Fair." He leaned back. "Something true about me? I started my first company at 19 with money I won in a poker tournament. My mother still doesn't speak to me about it. She wanted me in medicine or law, something respectable. I built a tech empire out of spite and stubbornness." Lily laughed. Couldn't help it. "Spite and stubbornness, that tracks." "Does it? You've eaten at a mediocre Italian restaurant 7 nights in a row because a waitress told you no. Stubbornness definitely tracks." Marcus grinned, and the transformation was startling. Without the corporate mask, he looked younger, more accessible. "What can I say? I'm goal-oriented." They talked for 2 hours. Marcus told her about growing up in old money that expected him to manage the family fortune, not make his own. About his mother's cutting disappointment and his father's early death. About building an empire and realizing too late he'd forgotten to build a life. Lily shared carefully edited stories, her love of languages, the joy of connecting people across cultural divides, her tiny apartment with its view of the Pike Place market. She didn't mention Geneva or the symposium or the man who'd destroyed everything. Not yet. When the cafe staff started pointedly stacking chairs, Marcus walked her to her bus stop. "Can I see you again?" he asked. "Not at Antonio's. Somewhere. Neutral." "Why?" Lily looked up at him, searching his face in the streetlight. "Why me, Marcus? You could have anyone. Models. Socialites. Women who speak your language. You speak 7 of my languages." His voice was soft. "And you're the first person in years who seems interested in me rather than my portfolio. When you look at me, you're not calculating what I can do for you. You're just seeing me. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" Lily's chest tightened. She understood better than he knew. "One date," she heard herself say, "somewhere quiet. No fancy restaurants or clubs where photographers lurk. Pike Place Market, Saturday morning. Tourist blend coffee and overpriced flowers." "Perfect." She smiled despite herself. "Fair warning, I'm vicious about produce selection. I'll try to keep up." As Lily's bus approached, Marcus caught her hand, the same gentle touch from the restaurant. But this time she didn't pull away. "Thank you," he said, "for taking a chance." The bus hissed to a stop. Lily squeezed his hand once, then let go, climbing aboard before she could do something stupid like kiss him. Through the window, she watched Marcus standing under the streetlight, hands in his pockets, watching her bus disappear into Seattle's drizzle. Her phone buzzed. "I'm already looking forward to Saturday." Lily smiled at the screen, then typed back, "Don't be late. The good strawberries sell out by 9. His response was immediate. "I'll be there at 8. For the first time in 3 years, Lily fell asleep thinking about the future instead of hiding from the past. She didn't notice the black sedan that had followed her bus for 6 blocks before turning away. Didn't see the flash of a camera capturing her smile through the cafe window. In another part of the city, a man in an expensive suit looked at those photos with cold calculation, recognizing the face he'd spent 3 years trying to find. Lily Hartwell, once Lillian Hartwell Beaumont, heiress to the Beaumont translation empire, had finally resurfaced. And she'd made the tactical error of getting close to Marcus Ashford, a man powerful enough to protect her or destroy her, depending on who got to him first. The game was about to begin again, but this time Lily had something she hadn't possessed before, someone who saw her as more than an asset to acquire. Whether that would be her salvation or her downfall remained to be seen. Saturday morning broke cool and gray, typical Seattle weather that Marcus usually found depressing. Today, walking through Pike Place Market with Lily beside him, the drizzle felt almost romantic. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, her hair down for the first time, soft waves that caught the light when she turned her head. Without the waitress uniform, she looked different, younger, more vulnerable. "You're staring," Lily said without looking at him, examining a pyramid of heirloom tomatoes with serious concentration. "You're worth staring at." "Careful. Compliments this early might go to my head." She selected 3 tomatoes with the precision of a surgeon, then moved to the strawberries. "These are good, not great, but good." Marcus picked up a carton. What makes strawberries great versus good? The ratio of sweetness to acidity. The firmness. Whether they smell like actual fruit or just vaguely red. She demonstrated, holding one close to her nose. "These smell like a warehouse, but these—" She moved to a different vendor's display. "These smell like sunshine." He watched her negotiate with the vendor in rapid-fire banter, her whole face animated in a way he'd never seen at Antonio's. When she smiled, really smiled, it transformed her completely. who believed me just called. Someone's been asking questions about me, about Seattle. Her amber eyes were wide with fear. He's found me, Marcus. After 3 years, he's found me. Marcus made a split-second decision. Come with me, my apartment. Top-floor security, doormen, cameras. You'll be safe while we figure this out. I can't just... Yes, you can. He was already flagging down his driver, the one concession he'd made to his normal life, having Thomas on standby nearby. Whatever's happening, you don't face it alone. Not anymore. Lily looked at him, and Marcus saw the war in her expression, pride versus fear, independence versus the desperate human need for help. Finally, she nodded. Okay. But Marcus, if this gets dangerous, if he comes after you too, let him try. Marcus's voice was cold steel. I've been playing nice my entire career. It'll be refreshing to destroy someone who actually deserves it. As they climbed into the car, neither noticed the photographer across the street, capturing their worried faces through a telephoto lens. By evening, those photos would be on a desk in Manhattan, in front of a man who'd spent 3 years erasing his mistakes. A man who didn't forgive loose ends. And Lily Hartwell Beaumont had just become a loose end with a powerful new protector, which meant she'd become a threat that needed eliminating. The game had begun. And this time, the stakes were higher than money or reputation. This time, it was about survival. Marcus's penthouse was everything Lily had expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than her yearly salary, art that belonged in museums. But it was also surprisingly personal. Books everywhere, in multiple languages, a well-worn guitar in the corner, photos of a younger Marcus with an older man who shared his eyes, his late father probably. Guest room is down the hall, Marcus said, setting down her hastily packed bag. Or there are 2 other bedrooms if you prefer more distance from... Marcus. Lily touched his arm. Thank you. I know this is insane. It's not insane. It's necessary. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my head of security. We'll need a protection detail, background checks on everyone at Antonio's, surveillance on... Stop. Lily caught his hand. Just stop for a minute. Sit with me. I need to tell you everything, and I need you to listen before you go into corporate warfare mode. They sat on the leather couch, the city glittering below them in the gathering dusk. And Lily told him everything. About the Beaumont translation empire her great-grandmother had built. About growing up speaking 7 languages, educated at Swiss finishing schools and the Sorbonne. About meeting Damien Cross at a Geneva symposium, charming, brilliant Damien, who seemed to love her for her mind, not just her money. He spent 2 years getting close, Lily said quietly, learning our systems, gaining my father's trust. Then he started using my credentials to authorize fraudulent contracts, siphon funds to shell companies. When the board noticed the irregularities, he'd already built a paper trail pointing to me. How did he turn your family against you? Marcus asked, his jaw tight. Evidence, so much evidence, emails from my account, documents with my signatures, forged but perfectly done, bank statements showing deposits to my personal accounts. And when I said I was being framed, that I loved Damien, and he'd never... Her voice broke. He presented more evidence, text messages where I supposedly discussed the scheme, voice recordings deep-faked, I know that now, but 3 years ago the technology wasn't as well known. Your family believed him over you. My family believed documentation over denials, and Damien was very convincing. He played the heartbroken fiancé, devastated by my betrayal. He even cried at the board meeting, where they voted to remove me. Lily's laugh was bitter, an Oscar-worthy performance. What happened after? Criminal charges. I spent 6 months fighting them before my lawyer convinced me to take a plea deal, admission of negligent oversight in exchange for no jail time. I lost everything. My inheritance, my position, my name. My own mother wouldn't take my calls. She wiped her eyes. I came to Seattle because it was far from New York, far from Geneva, far from everyone who knew Lillian Beaumont. I became Lily Hartwell and started over. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his hand tight around hers. When he finally spoke, his voice was deadly calm. "Damien Cross, I know him." Lily's head snapped up. "What?" "Different circles, but we've crossed paths at conferences. He runs Trans-Global Solutions now. Bought it with, I'm guessing, your family's stolen money. He's been trying to get a meeting with me for months. Wants to partner on an Asian expansion." Marcus's smile was cold. "I kept declining because something about him felt off. Now I know why." "Marcus, he's dangerous. He didn't just steal money. He stole my entire life. If he knows I'm here, if he thinks I'm a threat to his reputation, then he'll come after you. I know." Marcus stood, began pacing. "Which means we need to move first. Offense, not defense. What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that Damien wants a meeting with me, so I'll give him one. I'll tell him I'm interested in partnering, get him to Seattle, and while he's distracted with negotiations, I gather evidence," Lily finished, seeing his plan. "Get into his systems, find proof of the original fraud. Not you, my forensic team, former FBI white-collar crime specialists. If the evidence exists, they'll find it." Marcus crouched in front of her. "You've been running for 3 years, Lily. It's time to fight back. And if we can't find proof, if he's covered his tracks too well, then I destroy him anyway." The certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, Lily felt something unfurl in her chest. Hope, dangerous and intoxicating. "Why are you doing this? We've known each other 2 weeks." "Because," Marcus stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "Because when I'm with you, I remember why I built this empire in the first place. Not for money or power, but to have the freedom to live by my own rules. And my rule is that people who hurt those I care about face consequences." "Those you care about," Lily repeated softly. "I'm falling for you," Marcus said bluntly. "Maybe I fell that first night when you told me community college language programs with the straightest face. Maybe it was when you spoke perfect Parisian French and looked at me like I was just a man, not a bank account. I don't know when it happened, but it did. And I protect what's mine. I'm not yours. Not yet. But you could be, if you wanted." Lily stood, closing the distance between them. "This is crazy. 2 weeks ago, I was serving you pasta. Now I'm in your penthouse, planning corporate espionage against my criminal ex-fiancé. Having second thoughts?" "No." She reached up, touching his face. "That's the crazy part. I should be running. Instead, I'm—" She kissed him. Or he kissed her. Later, neither could say who moved first, but suddenly they were tangled together, 3 years of loneliness and fear and isolation pouring out in desperate touches. Marcus's hands in her hair, Lily's fingers clutching his shirt. The kiss was hungry, almost fierce, and when they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I can't promise this will work," Marcus said against her lips, "but I can promise I'll fight for you with everything I have. I believe you." And God help her, she did. They spent the evening planning. Marcus called his security team, his forensic accountants, his lawyers. Lily provided every detail she could remember about Beaumont translation systems, Damien's methods, potential evidence locations. By midnight, they had the skeleton of a plan. "He'll be suspicious," Lily warned. "Damien's paranoid about anyone from my old life. Then we make sure he sees exactly what we want him to see." Marcus pulled up a photo on his tablet. Lily and Marcus from the market looking worried. "My team flagged this an hour ago. It's been sent to someone in Manhattan. Damien, almost certainly. He knows you're with me. So we use it. We let him think you're just a billionaire with a new girlfriend, that you don't know who I really am." "I play the fool," Marcus said slowly. "Invite him to Seattle for business. Introduce him to my consultant, Lily Hartwell, and while he's focused on whether to expose you, your team takes apart his digital life." Lily nodded. "It could work if we're convincing enough." "Oh, we'll be convincing." Marcus pulled her close. "Because most of it won't be acting. I am falling for my brilliant consultant. That part's completely true." Lily rested her head on his shoulder, watching the city lights blur through sudden tears. I'm scared. Me too. But also excited? Furiously angry. She pulled back to look at him. He took 3 years of my life, my family, my name. He doesn't get to win. No, Marcus agreed, his eyes hard. He really doesn't. The next morning, Marcus sent the email. Damien, reconsidered your partnership proposal. In Seattle next week? Let's discuss Asian markets over dinner. Time to explore our synergies. May. The response came within an hour. Marcus, excellent timing. I'll fly in Thursday. Looking forward to finally working together. DC. As Lily read the exchange over Marcus's shoulder, she felt the first stirrings of something that felt almost like justice. He's coming, she whispered. He's coming, Marcus confirmed. And when he gets here, we'll be ready. What neither of them knew was that Damien Cross was also preparing. He'd recognized Lily in those photos immediately, had spent 3 years waiting for her to resurface so he could eliminate the one person who could potentially unravel his carefully constructed lies. He'd come to Seattle certainly, but not for business, for cleanup. And this time, he'd make sure Lily and Beaumont disappeared permanently. Thursday evening arrived wrapped in tension thick enough to choke on. Marcus's forensic team had spent 4 days creating a digital trap, back doors in the systems Damien would need to access, keyloggers disguised as routine security, even a cloned server that would mirror his every move. He'll be careful, Lily warned for the 10th time, pacing Marcus's office in a navy dress that made her look every inch the sophisticated consultant. Damien doesn't make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Marcus adjusted his tie, watching her with barely concealed desire. The past 4 days had been torture, working side by side, sleeping in separate rooms, maintaining professional distance, while the attraction between them built like a gathering storm. You're staring again, Lily said without turning around. Can't help it. You're stunning when you're plotting revenge. She turned, and the smile she gave him was sharp enough to cut. Remind me to plot revenge more often. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Cross is here, Marcus's assistant announced. Lily's smile vanished. Her hands trembled slightly before she fisted them, and Marcus saw the fear flicker across her face before she forced it down. He crossed to her in 3 strides, catching her face between his hands. You don't have to do this. Say the word, and I'll send him away. No! Lily's voice was steady. I need to face him. Need him to see that I'm not the broken girl he destroyed. You were never broken. Bent, maybe, but never broken. Marcus kissed her forehead. Let's go show this bastard what a mistake he made. They walked into the conference room together, and Lily got her first look at Damien Cross in 3 years. He'd aged well, still handsome in that polished, dangerous way, his dark hair silver at the temples now, his smile practiced and perfect. When he saw Lily, something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, then calculation, then a cold amusement that made her blood freeze. Marcus, good to finally meet in person. Damien extended his hand, his gaze sliding to Lily like a snake sizing up prey. And you've brought an associate? My consultant on international markets, Lily Hartwell. Marcus's hand found the small of Lily's back, possessive, protective. She's been invaluable on the Asian expansion. Hartwell. Damien's smile sharpened. Have we met? You look remarkably familiar. I have one of those faces. Lily's voice was ice. Shall we discuss the partnership proposal? They sat. For an hour they discussed markets and projections and synergies, and through it all, Lily felt Damien watching her with that calculating stare. He knew. Of course he knew. But he was playing along, waiting to see her angle. Finally, Marcus called for a break. Lily, would you mind getting those Tokyo projections from my office? Damien, the restroom is just down the hall. It was the opening they'd planned. 5 minutes for Damien alone with the conference room computer, accidentally logged into Marcus's secure network. Sure enough, when Lily returned with fake projections, Marcus's security team sent the alert. He took the bait. Installing malware now. Mirror active. So, the meeting continued another hour before Damien finally stood. I think we have the foundation of something profitable. I'll have my team send over detailed proposals. Excellent! Marcus shook his hand. Lily will be my point person on the cultural integration aspects. I trust you'll work closely with her? Damien's smile was pure poison. It would be my pleasure. Ms. Hartwell and I should definitely have a more private conversation about past experiences in international business. I'm sure we have nothing to discuss, Lily said evenly. Oh, I think we have quite a lot to discuss. Damien's voice dropped, meant only for her ears, as Marcus walked him toward the door. 3 years, Lillian. Did you really think you could hide forever? I'm not hiding. I'm standing right here. With a new protector. How quickly you moved on from our engagement. Though I suppose gold digging is a natural evolution from embezzlement. Lily felt rage surge, hot and cleansing. You know I didn't steal anything. You framed me. Prove it. Damien's whisper was mocking. Oh, wait. You tried that, didn't you? And no one believed you. Not your family. Not the courts. Not even your own mother. Mr. Cross, your car is here? Marcus's assistant interrupted. Damien's mask snapped back into place. Wonderful evening, Marcus. Lily? He nodded to her. I look forward to our next encounter. When he was gone, Lily's legs gave out. Marcus caught her, guided her to a chair. Did he threaten? You. What did he say? That I can't prove anything, that no one will believe me. She looked up at him. What if he's right? He's not. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her a screen full of scrolling data. Because while he was trying to intimidate you, my team was downloading his entire digital life. Every email, every file, every transaction from the past 5 years. How is that possible? Because Damien got arrogant. He installed malware on my system, thinking he'd steal my business secrets. What he actually did was open a two-way door. My security specialist, brilliant woman, former NSA, she's finding things even I didn't expect. Marcus's smile was cold. Turns out you're not his first victim, Lily, just his most high-profile one. Over the next week, the evidence poured in. 3 other companies, 7 other executives blamed for Damien's theft. A pattern stretching back a decade, always the same. Gain trust, steal money, frame someone else, move on. He's a serial fraudster, Marcus's head lawyer explained, spreading documents across the conference table, and sloppy once you know where to look. He kept records, insurance probably, in case he needed leverage. Encrypted but not well enough. Lily stared at the evidence, her exoneration, right there in black and white. Proof that Damien had forged her signatures, faked her emails, stolen using her credentials while she'd been in Geneva at a conference. Proof that would hold up in any court. We take this to the FBI, she said. Let them build a case, arrest him, prosecute. Or, Marcus interrupted quietly, we destroy him first, thoroughly, then hand the pieces to law enforcement. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that Damien Cross hurt you in ways that go beyond money. He took your family, your name, your sense of safety. Prison is too clean for that. Marcus's eyes were hard. But if his clients knew what he'd done, if his investors pulled funding, if every business relationship he'd built collapsed in the space of a week, that's justice. Lily should have been horrified. Instead, she felt vindicated. How? Leave that to me. What followed was a masterclass in controlled demolition. Marcus called in favors from journalists, fed evidence to investigative reporters, leaked documents to regulatory agencies. Within 72 hours, the first articles appeared. Translation Mogul's Empire Built on Fraud. Exclusive. Damien Cross's Decade of Deception. Beaumont heiress exonerated in stunning reversal. Lily's phone rang constantly. Her old boss, former colleagues, even her father's attorney. Each call brought validation she'd stopped hoping for, but the call that mattered came on day 5. Lillian? Her mother's voice, tentative and broken. I saw the news. Oh God, baby, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have, Lily cried. For the first time in 3 years, she let herself break down completely, and Marcus held her. Through it, whispering fierce promises against her hair. The legal aftermath took months. Damien was arrested, his assets frozen. 7 victims came forward. The prosecution built an airtight case. But for Lily, the real victory came the day her family's board voted unanimously to restore her position and her name. "You don't have to go back," Marcus said, watching her read the official letter. "You could stay here, work with me. We make a good team. We make a great team." Lily set down the letter. "But Beaumont Translation was my great-grandmother's dream. I owe it to her to rebuild it properly, with oversight and protections and Seattle headquarters." "You're reading my mind. Actually, I'm reading your face. You get this little crease right here." He touched between her eyebrows. "When you're planning something brilliant." "Is that so?" "Mm-hmm. You also get it when you're frustrated, and when you're angry, and—" He kissed her. "Right before you kiss me." Presumptuous, but she was smiling. "Am I wrong?" "No." Lily pulled him closer. "You're annoyingly perceptive. It's one of your worst qualities." "And my best qualities?" "Stubborn, vengeful, surprisingly good at corporate espionage." She paused. "And you look at me like I hung the moon." "You did," Marcus said seriously. "My world was dark before you walked into it, carrying overpriced pasta and speaking 7 languages." 6 months later, Marcus stood in a very different restaurant, Le Pichet, elegant and intimate, watching Lily charm a table of French investors with the same linguistic grace that had first captured his attention. But now she wore confidence like armor, her posture regal, her smile genuine. The broken girl was gone. In her place stood Lillian Beaumont, CEO of Beaumont Translation's new Seattle office, partner to Ashford Industries, and the woman who'd somehow convinced a cynical billionaire that love was worth believing in. When she caught his eye across the room, her expression softened into something private and precious. After the dinner, they walked along the waterfront, and Marcus pulled out a small box. "I had a speech planned," he admitted, "something about international partnerships and synergistic futures. But the truth is simpler." He opened the box, revealing a ring, emerald because diamonds reminded her of Damien. "Marry me, Lily. Not because it makes business sense or because we're good together. Marry me because I love you, because you're brilliant and brave and you rebuilt yourself from ashes, because when you speak French, it makes me forget my own name, because—" "Yes," Lily interrupted, laughing and crying. "Yes to all of it. Yes to you." The ring fit perfectly. Of course it did. Marcus was thorough in all things. They were married 3 months later in a small ceremony overlooking Puget Sound. Lily's mother cried through the entire event. Her father walked her down the aisle with tears streaming down his face, whispering apologies she'd already forgiven. Marcus's mother, initially skeptical of her son's waitress girlfriend, had become Lily's fiercest defender after learning her story. As for the others, Damien Cross received 15 years for fraud and embezzlement. His assets were liquidated to repay victims. His name became shorthand for corporate treachery. Lily's old boss retired comfortably with a generous consulting contract to Beaumont Translation. The investigative journalist who broke the story won a Pulitzer. Marcus's forensic team got 7-figure bonuses and more work than they could handle. And Antonio, the restaurant owner who'd stolen tips? An anonymous complaint to labor authorities resulted in an audit, heavy fines, and eventual closure. Not everything required elaborate revenge. Sometimes karma just needed a nudge. 2 years after their wedding, Lily stood in Beaumont Translation's Seattle headquarters, 15 floors of glass and steel overlooking the market where Marcus had once bought her strawberries, and felt the final piece of her broken life click into place. She'd rebuilt her name, her company, her family relationships. But more importantly, she'd built something new, a partnership based on trust, a love based on seeing each other clearly, and a future that belonged entirely to them. Marcus found her there, wrapped his arms around her waist, and pressed a kiss to her temple. The Tokyo office called. They want you to fly out next month for the opening. Lily corrected. They want us to fly out. You're the co-founder, remember? I remember. I also remember you doing all the actual work while I distracted you with kisses. Terrible strategy, very inefficient. Is it working? Lily turned in his arms, and her smile was pure sunshine, the real smile, the one she saved just for him, completely. They kissed as the Seattle sun set over Puget Sound, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their carefully planned lives and built something better from the pieces. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos, languages mixing, cultures colliding, stories unfolding in every corner. And in one quiet office, two people who spoke the same language of hope and second chances held each other and planned their future in whispers and promises. The end.